Nietzsche interviews Almighty Ohm on Twilight of the Idols and the Crisis of Modernity. So intro. Welcome to Almighty Ohm, the Tragedy of Trauma, a podcast where we explore philosophy, healing, and the stories that help us find meaning in a chaotic world. Today I'm joined by an extraordinary guest, Friedrich Nietzsche, the philologist, philosopher, who saw through the illusion of his time and, somehow, ours. In his Twilight of the Idols, Götterdämmerung, particularly his critique of modernity, Nietzsche diagnosed a world adrift, living very quickly, very irresponsibly, stripped of purpose, meaning, and our own nature. In 2025, his words feel more urgent than ever. Friedrich, welcome to the show. Almighty Ohm, I am here, hammer in hand, to shatter the idols of your age. In Twilight of the Idols, I wrote of a modernity consumed by pitiful, petty statutory and nervousness. A world that has forgotten how to endure, to build, to live for anything beyond the moment. I see in your 2025 a frenzy of screens, algorithms, and empty chatter. Tell me, you who call yourself a storyteller and healer, do you recognize this malaise? What has your world lost, and how do you propose to reclaim it? Friedrich, your words hit hard because they're true. In 2025, we're drowning in noise, social media, polarized politics, AI-generated distractions. We've lost our instinct for endurance, for building something that lasts. Just as you warned, people chase instant gratification, likes, trends, quick fixes, while meaning slips through their fingers. As a metamodernist, I try to weave together the earnestness of purpose with the irony of our absurd world. On this podcast, I share stories of trauma and healing, drawing from thinkers like you, Carl Jung and Swami Vivekananda, to help people discover their nature, not as consumers, but as creators. It's about facing the chaos and finding a path through it, not around it, rediscovering our nature, as you once opined in your later notebooks. You speak of creation, but creation demands courage, a will to power that is not about subjugating others, but forging oneself into something greater. In my critique of modernity, I decried the loss of this instinct, the surrender to the herd's smallness. Your world, with its endless scrolling and shallow gurus, seems to me a herd beast writ large. Tell me, Ohm, how do you wield this will to power in your work? How do you resist the pull of this petty statutory and awaken others to their own creative fire? You're right. It's a herd out there, and it's seductive. The will to power, as I see it, is about crafting a life that's authentically yours, not dictated by algorithms or dogma, not identity, the stories other people tell that you live, but writing your own mythos, like the ship of Theseus, constantly rewriting and living, walking that uncertain path as you called us to tread, only walking fresh and authentically will you be uncertain. And I've always loved that you highlight that we will feel lost and uncertain because we are in the unknown. We're carving a new path. And why this isn't often discussed has always shocked me, right? And this is why I have this podcast where I explore these ideas about proto-transcendentalism, blending your life-affirming philosophy with Jung's individualism and Eastern wisdom to help people break free. For me, it's personal. It's faced trauma, the kind that fractures your sense of self, and I've had to rebuild. My podcast tells these stories, mine and others, to show that suffering isn't something to escape, but a forge for creation, a crucible where we refine ourselves. In 2025, that means helping listeners turn off noise, X notifications, TikTok trends, and turn inward, the longest journey, to journal, to reflect, to build communities that value meaning over metrics, it's a slow, hard path, a hard slog. It's hard work, but it's how we reclaim our very nature. Slow, hard work, the path of the wounded healer. I too knew suffering, and from it I forged my philosophy. But let us turn to the eternal recurrence, for it is here that we face the true test. In Twilight of the Idols, I ask, can you affirm every moment of your life, every joy, every pain, as if it would return eternally? Your world of 2025 seems terrified of pain, fleeing into distractions or false comforts. You speak of trauma and healing. How do you tell your listeners to embrace their fate, to say yes to the chaos of this age as part of their destiny? Well, I remind people of the word vicissitudes in the English language. It means the troublesome events of life. But in reality, this affirmation of life, your eternal recurrence, is to remind us that the negative experiences of life aren't just what make up our life, but they are what create us. That's the heart of it. Friedrich Nietzsche, loving your fate, loving yourself and others. In 2025, we're bombarded with ways to numb pain and distract. Apps, influencers, endless content, but I believe, like you, that pain is a teacher. On my podcast, I share stories of people who've faced trauma, personal, generational, cultural, and found meaning by affirming it, not denying it. The eternal recurrence isn't just a thought experiment, it's a way to live. I tell my listeners every moment, even the darkest, is yours, ordered by your destiny. By embracing it, you transform it. I draw on my own journey, compartmentalizing pain, then integrating it through philosophy and storytelling. That's meaning making, that's sense making, that's mythos. And I encourage practices like narrative theory and meditative reflection, or as Jung called it, the active imagination. In 2025, this means turning a family rift healing a family rift or fighting for systemic change despite the noise. Amar Fati, you understand its weight. Yet I wrote in Twilight that modernity has lost its connection to nature itself, its instincts, its vitality. Your world, with its machines and virtual masks, seems further removed than mine. You call yourself a syncretist, blending philosophies to forge a new path. What is this path, Ohm? How do you lead your listeners back to their nature, to a life that endures beyond the fleeting distractions of 2025? You're right. We've drifted far from our very nature. Seduced by tech and convenience, my syncretism is about reclaiming that vitality by weaving together the best of human thought, your call to self-overcoming, Jung's depth psychology, Vivekananda's universal spirituality. On the tragedy of trauma, I explore how trauma disconnects us from our instincts, but also how it can reconnect us when we face it. My path is about integrative education, teaching emotional literacy to navigate tech-driven anxiety, fostering communities where stories heal across generations. In 2025, it's about small, deliberate acts, turning off the screen to write, to listen, to feel, to be. It's about building a life that's not just a reaction to chaos, but a creation that endures, like the institutions you wish we'd build. Like what Camus says, let your existence be a very rebellion in the face of the absurd. A creation that endures. That's a task. To build, not for today, but for eternity. In Twilight of the Idols, I called for those who dare to be untimely, to stand against the tide of their age. You, Almighty Ohm, seem such a one, yet the challenge remains. Will your listeners heed the call? Will they smash the idols of 2025, the algorithm, the noise, the cowardice, and become creators of their own fate? What is your final word to them? Well, my final word is this. Don't run from the chaos of 2025. Embrace it. Say yes to every moment, as Nietzsche taught us and as James Joyce did as well, and let it forge you. Turn off the noise, pick up your hammer, and create. Whether it's a story, a community, a new way of being, your pain, your joy, your struggle, it's all yours eternally. Live like it matters, because it does. On Almighty Ohm, I'll keep sharing stories and ideas to guide you, but the work is yours. Become who you are, and let's build a future that endures. Hammer Fati Ohm, go, and let your voice be a hammer in this nerveless age. Thank you, Friedrich, and thank you for this unforgettable conversation. Listeners, join me next time on Almighty Ohm, or the tragedy of trauma, as we explore more stories and philosophies to navigate our chaotic world. And until then, embrace your fate and keep creating.